Poilievre confronts WEF's Mark Carney over CSIS leak, exposes Liberal failure. In the latest chapter of Canada's ongoing political drama, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has unleashed a scathing attack on Mark Carney, the newly appointed Liberal Prime Minister, calling out his connections to the World Economic Forum, WEF, and accusing him of prioritizing foreign interests over the well-being of Canadian citizens. Poilievre's fiery rhetoric comes as the country prepares for a crucial election, and tensions surrounding issues of foreign influence, energy policy, and national security are reaching a boiling point. Poilievre's statements are not just rhetoric, but part of a larger strategy to position himself as the leader who will defend Canada's sovereignty and ensure that the country's policies serve its citizens first and foremost. At the heart of his critique is Carney's ties to global elite organizations like the WEF, which Poilievre argues exerts undue influence over Canadian policy, pushing an agenda that could harm local industries, diminish Canada's energy independence, and compromise national security. Poilievre's criticism of Carney's energy and economic policies. One of the key areas where Poilievre has targeted Carney is his approach to energy policy. Carney has been a vocal advocate for addressing climate change through the adoption of green energy technologies, such as wind and solar power, and his government has invested heavily in these sectors. However, Poilievre argues that Carney's green agenda fails to recognize Canada's vast natural resources, which include oil, gas, and minerals essential for global energy needs. Instead, Carney's policies, according to Poilievre, are designed to increase Canada's reliance on foreign-made products and technology, especially from China, a country with which Carney has deep economic ties. Poilievre points out that Canada imports the vast majority of its clean tech products from China, which dominates the global market for solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicle batteries. He argues that this reliance on Chinese-made products undermines Canada's economic independence and creates an uneven playing field for local businesses. Meanwhile, Carney has been vocal in his opposition to expanding Canada's oil and gas sector, including efforts to build pipelines that would allow the country to better harness and export its natural resources. For Poilievre, this failure to support Canadian energy is not just a missed opportunity, it's a dangerous policy that leaves Canada vulnerable to international economic pressures and jeopardizes Canadian jobs in the oil and gas industries. In contrast, Poilievre has championed policies that would increase domestic energy production, including the development of pipelines and other infrastructure projects aimed at increasing Canada's energy exports. He argues that energy independence is critical for both economic and national security, and he believes that Carney's green agenda puts these interests at risk. Poilievre also stresses that Canada's energy sector can be modernized and made more sustainable without sacrificing economic growth or energy independence. Allegations of foreign interference and political manipulation. Another key issue that Poilievre has raised concerns the alleged foreign interference in Canadian elections. The 2021 CSIS report, which warned of efforts by Chinese officials to sway the votes of Chinese-Canadian citizens by portraying conservatives as Trump-like and anti-immigrant, has become a central talking point in Poilievre's campaign. Poilievre has pointed out that these tactics appear to be playing out in real time, with the Liberal Party seemingly employing similar strategies to influence public opinion. Poilievre's accusations gained further traction after it was revealed that Liberal operatives were allegedly involved in planting fake "Stop the Steal" buttons at a Conservative event to smear Poilievre's campaign. Rather than being punished, these individuals were reportedly reassigned, a move that Poilievre claims further demonstrates the corruption and dishonesty within the Liberal Party. For Poilievre, this scandal highlights a broader issue of unethical political practices and the manipulation of public opinion by the ruling party. He has repeatedly accused Carney and the Liberals of being more focused on maintaining power than on serving the needs of Canadians. Free speech and Bill C-11, a threat to democracy. Poilievre's criticism of Carney also extends to the issue of free speech, particularly with the controversial Bill C-11, which grants the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, sweeping powers to regulate online content. Poilievre has denounced the bill, arguing that it represents a direct attack on free speech and gives the government too much control over what Canadians can say and think online. He claims that Carney and the Liberal government are afraid of open debate because it threatens their narrative and ability to control the political discourse. In Poilievre's view, the government's push for stricter regulation of online content is part of a broader attempt to stifle dissent and suppress voices that do not align with the government's preferred message. He warns that Bill C-11 could be used to censor political opponents, including conservative voices, and silence criticism of the government's policies. For Poilievre, this bill is a clear example of the Liberal Party's authoritarian tendencies and its disregard for democratic principles. Carney's response: a deflection of accountability. Mark Carney, for his part, has defended his policies, particularly in the realm of energy, arguing that Canada must balance its environmental responsibilities with the need for energy security. Carney has repeatedly emphasized the importance of transitioning to cleaner energy sources in order to combat climate change, asserting that Canada can develop both clean and conventional energy sources in a responsible manner. However, critics, including Poilievre, argue that Carney's approach does not go far enough to protect Canadian jobs in the energy sector or ensure Canada's economic independence. Carney has also defended the Liberal government's handling of allegations of foreign interference, denying that any efforts have been made to manipulate Canadian voters. However, Poilievre has pointed to numerous examples of questionable political tactics used by the Liberals, including the alleged planting of fake "Stop the Steal" buttons at Conservative events. Poilievre argues that these actions reveal a pattern of dishonesty and manipulation within the Liberal Party, and he has vowed to hold Carney and the Liberals accountable for their actions. The political landscape: a choice between two visions. As the election looms, Poilievre and Carney are representing two fundamentally different visions for Canada's future. On one side, Poilievre is advocating for a return to Canadian sovereignty, prioritizing national interests over foreign influence. His campaign focuses on transparency, accountability, and a renewed commitment to Canada's energy independence. Poilievre promises to roll back government regulations that he believes stifle Canadian innovation and economic growth, and he is committed to protecting free speech and opposing government overreach. In contrast, Carney's vision centers around global cooperation and environmental sustainability. He argues that Canada must embrace the global green energy transition and work with international partners to address climate change and other global challenges. Carney's policies emphasize building stronger international relationships, particularly with China, while also pursuing a balanced approach to domestic energy development. The stakes of this election could not be higher. With issues such as energy security, free speech, and foreign influence dominating the political discourse, voters will be forced to choose between two leaders with vastly different approaches to Canada's future. Poilievre's supporters argue that Carney's globalist agenda poses a threat to Canada's sovereignty, while Carney's supporters believe that his leadership is necessary to navigate the complex global challenges facing Canada in the 21st century. Conclusion: the choice is clear. In the coming weeks, as the election draws nearer, Canadians will be faced with a stark choice. Will they opt for a leader who promises to protect Canadian sovereignty, restore free speech, and prioritize national interests? Or will they choose a leader who seeks to strengthen Canada's ties with the global community, particularly through the green energy transition? Poilievre's confrontation with Carney is just the beginning of what promises to be an intense and hard-fought election campaign. As both leaders make their case to voters, one thing is clear: this election will determine the future direction of Canada's domestic and foreign policies for years to come. The question remains: who will ultimately win the support of Canadians and lead the country through these uncertain times?